About Books is a poorly spoken podcast. I'm Nate. I'm joined as always by Ben. How's it going, Ben?
Nate has a case of the giggles, but we're here again talking about Promise of Blood.
Hold on, Brian McClellan.
Oh my god.
Yeah, 1 for 3. Third time's the charm, baby.
Well, it's good because I just reminded you of that literally an hour ago because we're recording these back to back.
I actually almost said Sanderson again.
Gosh. Have you ever... Okay, there's a thing I should show you, but the listeners would enjoy this too. If you go to YouTube and you type in orcs with normal voices... Some guy redubbed all the orcs from the Lord of the Rings movies with just like his normal voice. It's the same dialogue, but it's normal.
You're late. Our master grows impatient. Saruman.
We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days. Gosh.
I don't take orders from orc maggots. Oh. Oh, now I have something else to watch.
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, though, we're not here to talk about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, we're here to talk about Promise of Blood by Brian... I almost said Sanderson again. God damn it.
By Kevin
Brian
McClellan.
McClellan. It's not Kevin McAllister. So last episode, Thomas found out there were a bunch of spies in his country and that God was going to come back and smite him. And, like, there's just all kinds of crazy shit going after his son. But, like, he's really got to get this fox first, yo. So, like, I'm going to need you to get all the way off his back. I need to go into these woods with this weird stranger and hope that this isn't a trap. And then when it is a trap, we learn a little bit more about how medicine works. Apparently star-shaped objects are magic to the body. Can't cover those up, baby. And then Adamat was also there. So, Ben, anything you want to add to that recap?
Honestly, no. Not a lot happens. Everything that happens in part 2 could basically be thrown out. Well, they're not divided into parts. We divided them into parts. But what we're kind of calling the second act is a lot of, like, treading water on Thomas's side, while the real action is happening on Taniel's side. But for some reason, I don't know. I think if I were writing the book, I probably just would have left the Thomas part out and gone solely from Taniel's perspective, and then just done a little time skip for Thomas and Adamat. But I would have cut Adamat out entirely too. So I feel like the real action is on Taniel's side for most of the second act. But in the third act, it's still mostly on Taniel's side, actually. Yeah.
I think Thomas has more to do, though.
Like what?
It's just not as important. He has to beat this traitor, Ben.
I'm honest. Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does take 5 minutes to go do that. You're right.
So the first traitor is Brigadier Rise. I think that's his name. Or no, Barat. Barat was the bad guy.
I'm just going to... You did this last episode, and I didn't get a chance to correct you. I'm going to say it's Barrett. Like, it's not Tomas. We established that.
This guy is, he's foreign in my mind, so he's Barat. Brigadier Borat.
Hello, everyone. It's Editor Ben again. I have come with a reluctant message that I think I may actually be wrong, and Nate may be right. 3 episodes in, I finally decided to start researching how to pronounce some of these names, and I think we were wrong about many things. I think what we are calling Thomas, Tamas, is supposed to be pronounced Thomas or Tomas, as we were jokingly pronouncing it and found silly. I think Barrett, what I'm calling Barrett and what he is calling Barat, is a version of a French name, is something like Barat, and I don't know how much I've butchered that in the attempt to even explain it. So I'm wrong. I don't know if Nate's right, but he's not as wrong as I'm making it out to be. I'm being very condescending to him, and in this case, I think he won. So I hope he enjoys this little editor's note I've made. I'm sure I will be getting a message about it the very second he reviews this episode. Keep that in mind. Do not take your advice on how to pronounce these names from us. I think we're absolutely full of crap on this one. So I shall return to the future where, as usual, things are not better. Goodbye.
So Thomas accuses Brigadier Barrett of being the traitor, which he is, because he kidnapped Rise and was smuggling Kez soldiers, like that warden, into the country. So he has this elaborate plan. He's going to bring in Barrett, and he's going to make it seem like he still thinks Rise is the traitor, and he's going to have another brigadier like hiding in the room where he can't be seen, listening in on the conversation, and he's going to try and get Barat to get into a trap, right?
He does the old hot mic trick.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you to confess. And then he doesn't confess, but he still gets shot to death. Did I miss something here? I swear he did not confess to being the traitor or say anything incriminating.
I'm going to look it up for you. I'm going to put my glasses back on because I got to read, which is the one thing I hate to do.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Okay, so I'm rereading this.
Okay.
Patriot, and he warned me about you. Okay, I think what happened here is everybody liked Rise, who was now being painted as a traitor, and Barrett, he didn't admit anything, but he was acting hella sketch, and he did say, "You're not even a powder mage anymore."
Right. Is that what incriminated him? Like, he shouldn't have had that knowledge unless he were the traitor?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything that stood out to me on my first read as like, that's the smoking gun, he gave himself away.
Yeah, I didn't really, I think I didn't care. I'm sorry. I know I'm not being a good book podcast host right now, but I think I just genuinely kind of was like, turning pages at this point. I was like,
Sure.
Yeah, whatever. I don't care about these mercenaries. I don't care. I'm sure
I could not remember their names.
I'm sure they'll do something at some point. You talked about fantasy tropes. The legendary mercenary company is a big fantasy trope. Game of Thrones, it's the Golden Company or something, or the Second Sons. Maybe those are both in Game of Thrones. I don't remember. Or maybe the Second Sons. I don't fucking know.
These guys are Wings of Adam.
Oh, yeah. I don't care. I mean, they don't do anything in this book. I guess they guard
They really don't
the
do
city.
anything. You're right.
They're necessary, again, because I'm told they're necessary. So, good for them. It's another thing. It's another forced thing. It's like with the general. So, like, real quick, we're told, Rise. Brigadier Rise is a great dude, solid bro, really honorable. Everybody likes him. Barrett, just some dude who's sleeping with the boss, slept his way to the top, kind of a dick. And then who's the guy behind the curtain? I forget his name already. Sebastian. So
I'm just gonna call him Sebastian.
Sebastian is behind the curtain, and he's another promising young buck with a heart of gold who will always do the right thing, and he respects Rise. And you don't see any of this. It doesn't develop over time. You're just told, like, this is the relationship between these characters. And so, like, when this character
I think the first time you see Rise do anything other than just stand in the background is when he's kidnapping Thomas and then getting killed immediately after that.
So you're literally just told, like, this is the relationship between these characters. This is what they're like, and this is what this means. Like, if I was watching, the Powder Mage trilogy on TV, if somebody walked into the room at this point and I needed to explain to them what was going on, I would just say, this guy does this guy does this is their relationship, and so when this guy shoots him, it's like a really big deal. Like, he's sacrificing everything to shoot this person, but he's doing it because it's the right thing, and he's a good guy. You really feel that, right?
Yeah.
I want to be clear again, like I said in the previous episode. Doesn't break the book for me. It's fine. But as a room for improvement kind of criticism, cut this or write this. I think in all of my reviews, I commented that this book is underwritten, and it's a long book, and it's part one of a trilogy. But there's just too much going on, and not enough of it is written to the extent it needs to be written to be really good.
Yes, this is my problem with most of the book. It's not written well enough, or it's not as developed as it needed to be.
Yes. I would use the word developed.
I mentioned in part one, I will be, at the end, I'd like to just compare this to 3 different properties.
Okay.
I think that'd be a good way of, like, trying to summarize why this doesn't work for me.
But like I said, aside from the weird sex crap, which if I had to pick one thing that, like, I'll say this. I'm open to the possibility of reading the second book in this trilogy, but the Capoel thing bothers me. I didn't like it. It really does feel like that it's okay, she's a 6,000-year-old dragon thing. And I know I'm getting hung up on that. It's the main problem I have with the book. Everything else is kind of like weak, but not bad. Like, this isn't bad. It's just underdeveloped. It needs a little refining. And I don't even necessarily say it needs to, like, cut things. I think that's one way.
I thought it needed to slow down.
Yeah.
Because you start immediately with a coup, regicide, going to a counter-rebellion by royalists, going to a war, going to summoning God. Just boom, boom, boom. Like, we're off to the races. We're sprinting. And it's like, you could have made that into a trilogy of its own, almost. Like, you could have really slowed down and explored all this stuff that you're bringing up.
Well, I think that really goes to show some of the problems with a story where the magic system is developed first and foremost. Because the plot exists to showcase what a powder mage can do, and what, to a lesser extent, a bone eye and a privileged can do. And we need lots of fights, and we don't need lots of politics, and we don't need lots of interpersonal drama. We still want to have those things, but they're second to the fights.
Yeah, it's like you said, the fights were the thing that he developed, and then the connective tissue was...
Yeah. Like, you know what a powder mage can do. By the end of the book, you know what it means when Taniel snorts gunpowder. You know what it means when Taniel tries to do his 2-shot thing. You know he's not going to stand up to Julian, and he's not going to be able to take her out. And what you don't really know is, like, why does anybody care about Lady Winslav's mercenary company?
Yeah.
You don't probably remember the name of the kid whose finger got cut off and is Adamat's motivation. You probably can't name any of Adamat's family members.
I was about to say, that kid had a name that we were told, and I think he did.
He did. The wife is named, the daughter is named, the kid who gets his finger cut off is named. And the name is mentioned more than once, and mentioned again when he sees the finger and when he gets his daughter back. And I still have no idea what it is. And I know that's also kind of like a questionable criticism. Like, well, maybe somebody who's smarter than me would remember the name. I'd almost bet you don't. Like, if I was going to quiz a kid on how closely they read this book for, like, one of those reader quizzes, I would probably make that, like, name one of Adamat's children. Name a single member of Adamat's family would be my question. I can name Adamat. I can name Adamat and Sue Smith. Do you want to know why? Because I did things with Adamat and Sue Smith. I can't name any of his family because they're there. We're told they're important to him, and that he has a good marriage, and that he's a good father, and he cares about his kids, and then they're out of there. And then when stuff starts happening to him, we're like, oh, you see, that's actually a big deal for him because he was trying to protect his family, but then he couldn't protect his family. And so now he feels like a failure as a father. And now he's got to do what it takes to get his kids back. And that's why he's going to betray Thomas. And it's just told to you like that because we don't need to see it develop. We don't need to witness Adamat go through this conflict. It's just, this is not about magic. Adamat's just kind of there to round out the numbers. Adamat is a character like Brian McClellan obviously really likes, and he's a good character. I don't have a problem with him as a character. He just doesn't have a reason to be in this book.
Yeah, he doesn't have anything to do. I actually would have preferred if the book were mostly from his perspective, if he had something to do, because then we could see kind of this whole coup and counter-rebellion from the eyes of almost a normal dude.
I initially thought he was going to be set up to be kind of a counterbalance to Thomas. I thought Adamat was going to maybe challenge Thomas, maybe act as his conscience, maybe...
No, they hardly interact.
Yeah, maybe Adamat was going to check him in some way, because Adamat seems very reluctant to embrace what Thomas has done. But by the end of the book, Adamat is right on board too, because we're supposed to like Thomas. That's the main thing, is despite all evidence to the contrary, despite everything Thomas has done, we're consistently told he's a good guy.
He just wants what's best for the people, Ben.
He really, really cares about the people. That's why he started a war. And they quickly write it off as the war was going to happen anyway, and I don't really care. I don't really want to harp on that too much, but it's just little things that could have been done better. And it's like we said, part of the reason it sticks out to me so much is because I've written stuff like this, where these are the little things I am weak on. Like, I was raised on anime too. I like to develop power systems and little shonen battle type stuff, and then try to turn it into a book because I'm not good enough at drawing. But I don't think it always works that well. I think this is a better comic.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It would do well with a visual component because it's so action heavy.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't care as much about the politics stuff because you'd be focusing on the action stuff.
This is something I kind of want to explore more as we talk about more books. It sort of came up for me with our discussion of the Crad versus Teku, the couple of stories that didn't work for us. One of them was because it was so action heavy. And I think that's actually something about my own writing I want to address. Is I think the most you get out of the book medium, and none of these are like hard and fast rules, there are of course exceptions, but the book medium really allows you to get into a character's head in a way that you can't in other mediums. Like, God knows Dune movie tried it and it was horrible.
You will have to watch the BBC version. I
think there is really a challenge for a lot of writers of the stories they come up with when you're heavily influenced by comic books, as I think some of the influences here are coming from comic books, but you can't draw. You try to write a book with a comic book level plot, and it doesn't always jive.
Right.
And for me, that's where a lot of the hard magic system fantasy falls, is like, oh, this would be a really good shonen battle manga where we could have a lot of cool fights, but it doesn't necessarily work as a book. I don't know. That's an idea I've got in my head that I'm still kind of developing. I don't really know how I feel about that. I'm just sharing with my Words About Books audience for whatever reason. Because I do feel like there is a way to write a good action-heavy book, but I'm not seeing a lot of it. And when I see people attempting to be very cinematic in books, I tend to not like it.
Well, let me fast forward then. Later on in this book, Adamat is going to be attacked by the Blackstreet Barbers. They're going to try to assassinate him, and he uses his plot armor to escape almost unscathed. But I liked that. It was more action heavy, but it felt, I don't know, there was some level of suspense, and I felt like it worked. I don't know, I have a difficult time explaining why. It didn't feel like it was like, all right, and then he brought up his left leg and kicked at him, and then he pulled his right fist back and threw a punch, but the other guy managed to deflect it, and he pulled out his knife, which was hidden. Like, it didn't feel like that. It felt like I got out of the way, fell down the stairs, ran my ass down the foyer, got in here, waited for them to come in. Like,
no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that is a good scene to analyze because it does work better than some of the other scenes. Now some of the Powder Mage scenes do work very well. Like I think some of Taniel's shots that he lines up work very well. I think Capoel's Voodoo Doll works very well. But what works for me about the Adamat scene, I think, is that Adamat doesn't have powers, nor do the Blackstreet Barbers. What we know about them is that Adamat is a very calculating guy. He is capable, but he's also old. And so he's not the best fighter in the world. Sue Smith is a very good fighter, but Sue Smith gets taken out by surprise. And so we're worried about Sue Smith, and we know Adamat is very vulnerable. And we know that the Blackstreet Barbers, their main asset is their insane ferocity. And so we know it's that kind of like insane animalistic rage versus this cold calculating guy. And the action does something with the personalities of the characters. And it's rewarding to see Adamat use his cunning to diffuse the situation. He doesn't just outfight them because his kung fu is better than their kung fu.
Right.
He outthinks them.
Yeah, he knows his house better than they do, and he uses the environment to disable 3 dudes. And Sue Smith helps. Sue Smith puts a dude through the wall.
Well, right, but Sue Smith also helps by having that extra endurance. Like, Sue Smith is established as being a guy who is boxed for a little too long.
Yeah.
And his body is wearing out.
I think this is where he takes a bullet,
Yeah.
right? He takes a bullet, he falls down the stairs, he plays dead, basically. They all go after Adamat, and then Sue Smith comes from behind.
Yes. And the one thing we know Sue Smith has going for him, now he's a very physically strong dude, but the reason he wins fights as a boxer, even though he's older now, is because he can take the punches. And that's a previously established thing about his character. And that's part of the reason Adamat likes him. And the bond they have is also shown in the fight. Like, we've seen them go through some stuff together. And we've seen Adamat, like, care about him, and we've seen Sue Smith go... Of all the bodyguards in this book who go above and beyond to the Call of Duty, right? Sue Smith is the one that works.
Yeah, because they're shown to be friends.
Yeah.
I never got a friendship from Olim and Thomas.
They eventually get there. Like, I again, like, it's a Mahali scene.
Way
but
later, I feel like.
I like when they're doing their little slapstick thing in the kitchen.
Yeah, of all the three main characters, I think Adamat is the best, but he also has the least amount to do with the story.
He's the best character, he's given the worst plot.
Yes.
And that's what we just keep coming back to, is there's that, I just wish we focused more on the human element and less on the world building, I should say.
Yeah, it's like, I guess I didn't even plan on comparing it to Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it's not a show about people who can bend. Like, the bending is part of the world these people inhabit. It's about those people and about that journey.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm a sucker for lore, and I do like world building. Like, I guess in this case, it's a little bit about what I've said about sci-fi in the past is, and I think I even said this in the episode where we chose this book, the magic system will hook you or it won't. And I'm not a big, like, steampunk flintlock fantasy fan. I'm more a Lord of the Rings person. I'm more a Dune person. And those are not so much Lord of the Rings, I guess, but Dune definitely is one where the characters are weak and we're told what's important about them and who their friends are and everything. And there's a big lore dump. The Dune lore hooks me. For whatever reason, this lore doesn't hook me. So if you are somebody who's really into that flintlock fantasy, that steampunk aesthetic, I think maybe this would do it for you. And I think those are probably the real super fans of this. So I think
it's not like we're saying this is a book that's for no one. There's definitely a good audience out there for this. It just wasn't us, as it turns out.
Well, I think I have like a generally positive impression of the book. I would read a second one if that's something. Well, you said a friend of yours recommended this. So if your friend listens to these podcasts and still wants to hear more from me about these books, I would read another one. I do have a generally positive impression. I think Brian McClellan is a capable writer, and I think for a first time out, this is good stuff. But
yeah. Well, now that you're talking about the generally positive impression, let's get into the shit that we both hated.
Why do you do that? Because I just got to bleep it.
I know. Oh, I know. You have to bleep it. So, this whole time, Taniel has been fighting up on the mountains. There have been sappers, and the idea would be, like, they're either digging under the mountain to, like, blow up the wall, or, as it seems to be implied, to pop up on the other side of the wall, which sounds really stupid, but they're starting to get really suspicious because those sappers went underground with a bunch of privileged, and like they haven't shown up anywhere. They haven't destroyed the walls from below. They're MIA. So they're gonna lead a small band, a small sortie to go destroy those sapper tunnels and figure out what the heck is going on. And the night before they do this, Taniel sits down with his daughter-like child. Take it away, Ben.
Oh boy, let me get my glasses back on. Gonna need the full force of my judgment for this. I have so many highlights. Shield, Taniel said. She nodded and pointed at him. Shield me. Protect me. You want to protect me. What, the pit? You're what, 15 years old? You shouldn't be trying to protect me. You're just barely past playing with dolls. Taniel remembered the doll she made of Julian and what it did. You still play with dolls, dangerously, but you shouldn't be protecting me. Taniel imagined himself at 15, a headstrong, lanky boy with straight black hair and just the beginnings of a beard. He had filled out since then, grown stronger, taller, and already bore the scars of a seasoned soldier. He felt old, and he was barely 22. Capoel turned her back on him. Hey, don't. She folded her arms. Taniel stood up, came up behind her. She flashed her fingers, pointed at him rapidly. What? She did it again. 19? Oh, you. You're 19? Taniel was taken aback. I always thought you were a kid.
Oh, no.
At this point, I have a highlight that says, why are you telling me their ages now? Why would you do this?
Oh, no.
Let's go. Leaning forward. Okay. Well, damn it. I don't care how old you are. I don't want you protecting me. She turned around suddenly. Their faces were close enough for him to smell her breath. It was sweet, like honey. Too bad, she mouthed. Taniel squared his jaw. Damned girl. Why are you so worried about me? He asked slowly. She leaned in closer to him, their lips almost touching. He searched her dark eyes. They caught the starlight. There was mischief in those eyes and a smirk on her lips. Taniel felt his heart thump. Oh, God.
And he wondered how she might have tasted.
Yeah, I wasn't going to read it. Hang on, let me see if I can find another thing here. Okay, so what I was reading to you was from, hang on one second, let me make sure I don't lose this. Okay, so what I was reading to you was from page 363. Allow me to read you a passage from page 362. Get over here, Taniel said. He made sure his voice was not unkind. She sidled up beside him like a girl whose father had threatened a lashing, but who knew that an innocent smile would get her out of it. So why would you do that?
Yeah, they really drive home the father-daughter relationship, and then they say, oh, I always thought you were a little girl, but you're 19.
Why?
Now that I know you're 19.
Brian, why would you purposely say that she is acting like a girl who is with her father, with the man that she will be in one page flirting with, and reminding him that she is in fact legal? I don't like it. I don't like it, and there's really no two ways around it. This almost actually, and I'm kind of still waffling on it. This almost makes me want to give it a generally negative review. I really don't like this. I really don't like this in the extreme. I don't know where it comes from. There is no romantic tension between the two of them at all. Their entire relationship has been described as platonic.
As a father and a daughter.
The only hint you ever get is when, like, somebody asks him, like, I think it's Julian and the Mage Breaker. The Mage Breaker says something to him like, we have a bet going on about whether or not you're betting the girl. And he says no. And it came off to me in the moment as like, oh, yeah, these people are kind of scummy, insinuating that.
Yeah.
Because she's like a kid. They're like insinuating that he's some kind of garbage person who would have a kid
who would
as
take
a lover.
Advantage of a child. Yes.
Yeah. And then they turn around and do this, and I don't know. I'm trying real hard. I don't know how else to say it. I don't think this should be in the book. I don't appreciate it being in the book. I know there is a defense for this sort of thing, and I know I'm not the first person to bring up this sort of thing. I would compare it to maybe like Dany in Game of Thrones, where Dany is married off to Khal Drogo at the age of 14. All I can say is that in Game of Thrones, it was traumatic.
Yes.
You could argue, though, and many people have, that the way George R.R. Martin handled that, like he made it a little too sexy, that's a valid criticism, I think. There is a real discussion to be had over what sort of place these kinds of relationships have in fantasy and when, if ever, it is justified. In this book, I don't feel it was justified.
Absolutely not.
She was 14 up until the very second she was not. And the only reason she is 19 is to make this okay.
Yeah, because he was like, oh, I always thought you were a kid. It's like, well, it doesn't matter then that she's not
Why
a kid.
in God's name are you thinking of her like this now?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big old switch to flip in 5 seconds, Daniel. Because he goes from thinking she's 14 to wondering what she tastes like in the space of 2 pages.
But even if she had been 18 this entire time, they have been described as like a daughter and a father. And they have not liked each other in that way, and suddenly they have. And it's really weird either way.
Stopped the book dead for me, to be perfectly honest. I can buy her having a crush on him because he saved her from that very dangerous situation. I don't buy him reciprocating it because there's no romantic tension between them whatsoever. None whatsoever. And he doesn't have any exploration of like what this means to him now. It's just like switch flipped. Oh, she likes me? Well, I like her, I guess then. That's the most attractive quality in a woman to me.
Yeah?
I really don't think this should have been in this book, and I really don't know what he was thinking. And I think the only way to enjoy this book is if you can set this entire thing aside.
Yeah, my friend said he forgot this was even in the book. So maybe that's why he enjoyed it more.
Well, and maybe you could. Maybe you could say he didn't know what to do with Taniel, and he decided at some point that Vlora was not coming back as a love interest, because that's the thing that they're teasing for most of the book. That's the thing that is set up, is that Vlora will come back into the romantic equation. And I don't know if he's trying to do a love triangle thing here or what.
A love triangle between your adopted sister and your daughter figure. Wow. Just think about that one.
It's really hard. It's really hard not to... Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know what he was thinking, and I'm not going to make excuses for it. I don't think there is an excuse for it. I think this needed to be cut.
Completely, yep. Well, immediately after this, also, we go back to Adamat, who is going to, as part of that ongoing investigation into the singular traitor in Thomas's Mists, he goes to the Archdiocese Charlemagne, and it's a vineyard run exclusively by underage girls who are also wearing see-through clothing, and he has orgies on the regular, presumably with these underage women.
I want to point something else out to you. 362. Capoel is like a daughter to him. 363. She's 19 and she's into it. 368. Adamat couldn't take his eyes off the driver. She was young, perhaps 16, and had long golden hair down to her waist. She wore a simple driver's uniform, a smock, hat, and gloves to hold the reins, but they were all of translucent silk, and she wasn't wearing anything underneath. The girl gave him a polite smile, to which my note was, what the f*** is this book? Why 360 pages into the book did we decide to just do weird sex shit?
Yes.
There's a couple of things here. And I wrote this in my review. The biggest problem I have with this book is, I'm just going to say, misogyny. And I think that's the politest way I can put it. Because I'm just going to list the things that bother me about the way women are handled in this book. Vlora and the cheating. It seems a lot like a revenge fantasy to me. That he kills her lover and she wants him back and she just wants to apologize, but he's not having it. That seems like a fantasy to me. Then we have the privileged and their stupid little harems. In Beau's case, I guess he treats them well and it is like some kind of legit polyamory where they're cool with it. But in many other privileged cases, it seems like a very exploitative thing where like women are given to them as a reward. Then we have this Jeffrey Epstein mansion and Capoel. And we mentioned specifically that, yeah, okay, the Archdiocese is supposed to be some kind of crazy hedonist pervert. And he does all this terrible, disgusting, sinful crap, but he's a priest, so that's even worse. That's fine. Why is she 16? That would be the question I wanted to ask myself. Why would you specifically state in text the girl was 16? Was it not enough that a priest had attractive, scantily clad women running around his mansion that he presumably has sex with? There's two options I could think of. He mentions specifically that she's 16 because it makes it more disgusting, more reprehensible. Second option, he thinks it's hot. He thinks it's tempting. Adamat can't take his eyes off her. Why can't Adamat take his eyes off her?
Yeah.
Because she's hot?
Yeah.
Or because he feels she's being exploited and he feels bad for her? I honestly don't know.
That's something where it definitely should have been clarified, or really it should have just been cut. But
should have been cut.
Yeah, it should. As it stands, I could see definitely how you read that. Oh, it's tempting. So this young girl who's definitely not of age and is being exploited.
There's two guys looking at her. There's Adamat, and then there's his little guide. And his little guide is supposedly being tortured because the guide wants to marry the Archdiocese's niece, and the Archdiocese is tempting him by putting him in this garden of forbidden pleasures and making him resist to prove that he's truly in love with the niece. So I assume this is supposed to be a temptation to this guide. And I assume this is supposed to be a temptation to Adamat. And if that's the case, if it's supposed to be tempting, why make her 16?
I remember seeing a review of this book. It was like, this was obviously written by a man, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to take this thing with a grain of salt. And then I'm like, no, I agree. You got him.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, I was wrong to doubt you, and I'm sorry.
So that's all I'm going to say about that.
All right, so Adamat, by the way, over the course of his investigation, a lot of fingers are being pointed towards Ricard, or Richard, or Ricard, the Union Master, that he might be the traitor, so it's probably not that guy. And then let's quickly do Nyla the Laundress's story. So she was the laundress of a lord who was killed by Thomas in the coup. and she smuggled out the young lord's son, who she has a bond with, and he gets captured and supposedly killed, so she's now Thomas's laundress. She's going to kill him for the good of the nation, and Olam recognizes her as the woman he saved from sexual assault, and then he's like, hey, wanna go see a movie sometime? Sorry you were almost assaulted, and quote, when the time is right, I won't have to force you. Then Olam shows her that the young lord is still, the son, whatever, still alive, and she changes her mind about Thomas, but she's still going to save this son, and she gets kidnapped alongside the Lord by Lord Vetus, and then she is out of the story forever until the next book. That's her story. Then Adamat's attacked by the Blackstreet Barbers, which we mentioned. And Adamat, this is again going to his just bad detective skills, because he solved the first mystery by talking to a guy, and he solves this mystery by talking to another guy. He and the Powder Mages and the military, they go basically arrest the Blackstreet Barbers, and they go, who hired you? And eventually he spills the beans that a priest hired him, and oh, it's Charlemagne who was the traitor. Thomas has got to go get him. I guess first he kills some dudes at the festival to protect the chef, Mahali, and Prime Lecter turns out to be a Prede, and
part of the reason the Archdiocese betrays him is because Thomas won't hand over Mahali. Mahali is now basically challenging the church. The church teaches that there is one god, Kresimir. Mahali is running around saying that he's the incarnation of another god, Adam. That is against church dogma, and while the Archdiocese doesn't care, the church at large does. And so he tells Thomas, you're handing over Mahali. Thomas decides not to do that. Tells the Archdiocese to go kiss rocks.
Go kiss rocks. It still gets me.
I do it for
but
you.
The Archdiocese betrays him before Mahali's even really brought up.
Yeah, but I think that's the clincher.
The clincher.
And yeah, so they go to arrest the Archdiocese, but Adamat already warned him.
Yeah, Lord Velveeta warns the Archdiocese, and they shoot the shit out of Thomas. That kind of is how
that was kind of unclear.
Yeah, it was unclear. You're right. I thought
Thomas blames him. Adamat blames himself, but I don't think Lord Velveeta made it there in time.
I don't know. I didn't think he would, but maybe? Oh yeah, and Lord Velveeta wanted to take Adamat's young daughter and give him to some of his men. That's fucking weird again, but I'm over it. I'm over talking about this shit. So yeah, Saban, Thomas's friend, died. We're told that they're friends, so he's dead. So they're like, hey, Thomas, let's have a parlay here. Come here, I promise nothing bad will happen to you, but it was a trap, and something bad does happen to him. Except they don't realize that Thomas, he removed that gold star, so Thomas can use magic again.
Why would they assume he'd just leave it in?
Because he would lose his leg, Ben. I don't know. I thought, I thought they were under the assumption that he could use magic, and then it wasn't until the guy who murdered Thomas's wife, or executed, I should say, because it wasn't actually murdered, it was state-sanctioned. That guy was like, oh, he can use magic! And then Thomas pulls out like almost an entire gunpowder barrel of powder charges and just starts burning them and shooting bullets everywhere and killing everyone. And he cripples that guy. He's like, now you know what it's like to not have your magic, because he shoots his holes into both of his hands.
Yeah.
That's not really fair, because Thomas was able to surgically remove his gold star. This guy can't surgically repair his hands.
Fix his hands? Why not? Also, there's magic. You can just heal it with magic.
Well, healing magic is exceptionally rare, I think, is something that someone said.
Yeah, and he's exceptionally rich.
And then Charlemagne duels Adamat, then Olim, and then finally Thomas kills him.
Shoots him in the back.
Yeah.
like then Thomas sucker punches him. Like, yeah, Charlemagne duels Adamat, kicks his ass. Duels Olim, kicks his ass. Oh god. I mean, that was fun. I liked that because they have been teasing this guy. He's like, I'm the best damn swordsman that ever swordsed.
Yes. They actually did that, and they showed you it. It wasn't just like the general, where the general's like, I'm the greatest general ever. This guy actually outduels two people.
That was a good setup and payoff.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
Look, I'll even give it like the concluding scene with Thomas is good. That's a nice setup and payoff too. They've been teasing Thomas as this excellent powder mage. He's this great guy who can do all this stuff, and he doesn't do anything. And then finally he like kills a room full of people with the power of his powder mind powers. If you're here for that magic, then it was finally delivered on.
And I felt like, oh, okay, that must be the end. There's still 2 more chapters. And it's from Taniel's perspective. He's going up to that mountaintop. There are mountain lions that are hunting the Kez for some reason. Like the Kez tunneled under the mountain past the fortress, and they're going to go summon God. And mountain lions are up there, and they're hunting the Kez, and I didn't understand why, because they kept saying, like, that's weird. Mountain lions are solitary creatures, but they're hunting in packs, and they're going after these guys. I'm like, is that going to be explained? It's not. It might be later, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee that's explained in another book.
And then Taniel goes to the City of Gods. Their whole plan is like, okay, it requires a lot of mages to summon this. We can't fight Julene, like she's just beyond us. But if we kill enough of their mages, we'll prevent them from summoning Kresimir, and that will be enough. It's pretty much a suicide mission. This is one way. And by the time he catches up with them, Julene's like, yeah, I already summoned God.
Yeah, so somebody read The Watchmen.
That's what I was thinking as well. I wouldn't have told you my evil plan if I thought you could influence it. I completed this 30 minutes ago. So I remember this part where they're like, yeah, take Taniel alive. You know, he'll be a good hostage for his father.
That gave me a chuckle. He'll be a good hostage for his father. You summoned God himself. I think you don't. You could just kill him now. You don't need hostages.
Well, and one of the privileged is like, you're a marked scum, and Taniel just throws him off the mountain. It's like,
you rebel scum.
And then Capoel comes up, uses her dolls to just obliterate all these guys. She starts fighting Julene, and while she and Julene are fighting, Taniel shoots 2 special bullets that we never mentioned in this podcast, but were set up before. He shoots 2 bullets at God.
Yeah, he shoots God twice.
And God supposedly dies, but then they're like, you can't kill God at the end of the story. And the whole place collapses on them.
Yeah, kind of implied in the whole he's God thing.
Yeah.
You know what? If somebody summoned God and like God was here to kill my dad or whatever.
You shot him in the face.
I think it'd be time to like I'd be thinking about switching sides. I guess I'm not. I'd maybe be like, huh. You know what? I don't even like him. He sent me out here to kill my brother. He's an ass. Yeah, is there anything Capoel can't do?
She can't look like an adult woman.
Oh, dude, that was perfect. Okay, I was gonna say more, but I think we've got it. I think that's a that's a wrap. Oh God.
Oh yeah, you know what? I had some more, but I think that's just the perfect place to end it on.
Yeah, there's really not much more to say. I think that is the end of the book.
Oh boy! All right. Any other closing comments?
I said, I'm interested to know. You guys know the plugs. It's Twitter at WABpod, blog at blog.wordsaboutbooks.ninja. If If you feel we deserve something extra, buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/WABpod. I would encourage you guys, though, if specifically you are interested in us continuing this series, I'm willing to. I know Nate may not want to, but we've done that before where I read a book and he doesn't.
I would be willing to do it if the fans want us to. I would not. I don't think that this hooked me enough to make me want to invest the time to read another 400 plus pages of Powder Mage.
I agree. I'm kind of on the fence with this one too. There's been other books we've read like Heir to the Empire and The Poppy War where we know we're getting around to the sequel one day. This is one where I could take it or leave it. So I'll leave it up to you guys. If you want us to continue on with this one, I'd be willing to continue on with it. I have enough questions about where it goes that I am interested. I'm also interested in that a lot of the problems I have with underwriting and action-heavy plot and magic system emphasis are problems I have with my own writing, and so I do think that's interesting to talk about and maybe examine further. But if you guys aren't interested in hearing more about this book, I'm perfectly content to leave it at this. So let us know, and with that, I think I will say good night.
Yeah, bye.